Hi everyone, so in this video we're going to be talking about speech and language issues in our students in the classroom and how we can both help them to succeed and have a good time. So the first question we have to address is, what is a speech issue? How do we know if our students have one? And there are four main categories of speech issues which we're going to be discussing. The first is articulation, the second is voice, the third is language, and the last is fluency. And we're going to go into these in a little more detail now. So the first one we want to talk about is articulation. And articulation issues means that children have problems making some sounds or pronouncing some letters. So two examples of this that we might think of are Elmer Fudd from the Looney Tunes, who's always chasing after Bugs Bunny, that wascally wabbit. And Scooby-Doo, who has a dog, can't even pronounce his own name and ends up saying Wooby-Wooby-Doo. So articulation issues, you can remember, kids will change letters or drop sounds, and basically they're not pronouncing all of the sounds correctly. So what would articulation speech therapy look like? Because a lot of the times we can treat this at a young age. We have kids learn how to make the sound. So here we're going to learn how to make the K sound.
Kids, do you know you have a friend hanging around in the back of your throat? He's called your uvula. Look! If you lift the back of your tongue up and push against your uvula, you can make a cool sound like this. Crazy! See if you can do it.
Another type of speech and language issue is that of voice. And there's some major types of voice issues that fall into the categories of difficulties in pitch, loudness, resonance, or quality of the voice. So here we have pop culture examples of Lena Lamont and Darth Vader. Lena Lamont is known for having a more high-pitched nasal voice. And she even goes to a speech therapist at one point who tries to help her. As she goes, "And I can't stand him." The speech therapist is trying to help her say, "And I can't stand him." And then Darth Vader has a raspy voice, and he has the pain while talking, which is the last bullet, because of an injury he sustained that made it so that he has to use a respirator to talk. Now, a third issue our students might have is a language issue. Now, this is different from the first two because instead of it being about the way the students talk, instead of it being about their voice or about the sounds they make, it's about understanding and communication. So, in particular, it's students either not being able to communicate what they feel or not being able to understand others. So, some of the main ways that this shows itself is using words improperly or not understanding their meanings, being unable to express ideas clearly, using grammar inappropriately for their age and what they should be able to do, not having the vocabulary they should have at their age, and not being able to follow directions as well as they should. So we're going to watch a fairly comical example of President Bush in some stressful situations having some language difficulties. And while this example is comical if it loads, we're going to note in the next slide that our students really do struggle with these.
In my sentences,
They struggle to be able to express their own ideas.
I go where no man has gone before.
And they struggle to be able to understand what others are saying. So here we're going to see President Bush having some troubles in trying to express himself. And we'll learn what that's called in our next slide.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you."
fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
If you're a single mother with 2 children, which is the toughest job in America as far as I'm concerned, and you're working hard to put food on your family,
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we. It would be a mistake for the United States Senate to allow any kind of human cloning to come out of that chamber.
this Thursday, ticket counters and airplanes will fly out of Ronald Reagan Airport.
I hear there's rumors on the internets. I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully. And America needs a military where our best and brightest are proud to serve. As yesterday's positive report card shows, children do learn.
You teach a child to read, and he or her will be able to pass a literacy test.
So those are just some comical examples, but as we were noting before, our students might actually struggle with language when they've been learning grammar or they've been learning meanings in classes, but it's not sinking in, so they're struggling with it. So struggling to convey your own ideas is expressive language disorder. This means you're not able to use meanings correctly, or you're struggling to find the words you want to use, and so that was the case in the video in the past. We could say that in those cases, President Bush had expressive language disorder. But then there's also receptive language disorder, which means that people are trying to communicate with you, but you don't really understand the meanings of the words that they are using. And this might show itself in difficulty in following directions. And then there's mixed language disorder, which is a problem with both. You have problems communicating your ideas, and you have problems understanding what other people are trying to tell you. And a last issue that we want to talk about is fluency, which most of the time will display itself in a stutter or really long pauses in between speeches where people are not able to express their thoughts fluently and coherently. So we're going to watch an example of this that may represent some of our students, because it can be a real struggle in the classroom. So this is a contestant of America's Got Talent. His name is Drew, and he will be sharing a little bit of his story. And he is trying to be a comedian.
Hello. How you doing up there?
Hi.
You doing okay?
Yes. My name's Drew. I have a stutter. That's what that is.
And what is your talent?
I'm a comedian.
A comedian, okay. And when did you start doing comedy?
For about 4 years ago. I didn't want to always do comedy, but I had a sports injury. That's why I talk like this. Almost 4 years ago, I was on a softball team. There was a grounder that took a bad hop and hit me in my throat, which damaged some nerves in my vocal cords. Excuse me. I felt angry about it at first. I started to write down all my frustrations on a napkin in the hospital. My girlfriend encouraged me to try just talking about those things on stage, and I started to do comedy as a way of I guess coping with it. I don't know. I was feel better after you talk to me. The person I was before would probably never hang out with who I am today. I thought people were lucky if they got to talk to me. And that was a jerk. I feel a lot of responsibility to show people that you can turn anything into a positive.
How does song...
And you can watch more of Drew's experience. America's Got Talent is an NBC show, so you can watch more through NBC, or you can find his clips on YouTube. But you can sort of see the way that students might really struggle to have a stutter, to communicate and express themselves. Now, one other point that it's interesting and important to bring up is that it's not expected that students will have all speech skills at the beginning as soon as they walk into the school. There are benchmarks, however, for each year in developing childhood that can help us realize if our students are on track or not for having normal speech and language development. For example, at 7 months to 1 year old, it's expected that students will be able to, children, 7 months to 1 year old, that children can recognize requests or questions. So if you say, like, come here, or do you want more, that they'll be able to recognize what you're talking about and to respond. But even when kids are 4 to 5 years old, it's not expected that their speech will be perfect. They might still have trouble making some sounds, like the sound, ch, sh, f. They might have some trouble with hearing the differences between those, and that's to be expected. All right, well, if you think you are ready and you've been keeping up on this, let's test your knowledge real quick. Which of the following is not a major speech or language impairment category? Articulation, accent, voice, or fluency? So if you guessed accent, then you are correct. Moving on. At what age will children usually start being able to respond to requests and questions? 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months, or 12 to 18 months? That one, we got 7 to 12 months is the correct answer. All right. Third question, which of the following is not a possible indication of a language issue? Distortion of sounds and letter pronunciation, improper use of words and their meanings, inappropriate grammatical patterns, or inability to follow directions? All right, fourth. A child who tends to stutter or have frequent repetitions and pauses has a problem with articulation, fluency, voice, or language? That one was fluency. We had Drew as the example. And our last question, someone with a voice disorder has problems with singing, beatboxing, and rapping, speaking a target language, producing any sounds at all, or pitch, loudness, and quality. All right, how did you do? Well, we're about out of time, but before we leave, it's important to go over what teachers can do to help students who have speech and language problems. So, some of the 5 main things they should be willing to do is to learn about the speech and language issue of their child, which category it falls under, to follow the IEPs that are created by the IEP committee with regard to that child, to be willing to provide accommodations if the child needs it, to consult with experts in special education or speech pathologists, and to be able to talk with the parents about the child in question. These are all things that a teacher can do to have a more sensitive pedagogy that can help their student to succeed. And if you have any more questions about speech and language issues or would like to learn more, then follow the links in the description of the video, and most of the video was based on those websites, and you'll be able to learn more. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you learned a lot.